Lefty. I'm the maker behind Lefty Knits, and today I want to talk to you about some of the projects that have been languishing in my whip pile for too long, and if I want to finish them or frog them. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has these whips that just languish for a while and then they end up under a pile of a bunch of other whips, and then you're like, I don't really want to work on that. Like, maybe something complicated happened. Maybe there was like an issue with the project. Maybe like one of these, for example, was a travel project, and so when I returned home I kind of forgot about it. One of these is really messed up and doesn't quite fit the theme, but it's just silly to me. So I have 6 projects today that I'm going to be talking about. I think a lot of them, maybe finish or frog isn't like super binary for a lot of these. I think a good number of them are going to be kind of like a frog and then finish type thing. Just because, you know, like some of them are okay, they just needed tweaking, and I kind of decided that I didn't want to deal with it at that moment. I need to just commit myself to fixing the problems that I have with them. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. The first project I have doesn't really fit this theme. It's just very silly, and it is what I've been calling the sock. I don't know if you can tell how fucking enormous this sock is, but it's huge. It's covered in Lola's fur. I don't know if you can see that either. So this is a recent whip, and I think I just mostly want to record a video where I show it for posterity because it's very silly and dumb. I'm using the pattern, the basic rib sock pattern by Kate Atherley, and the yarn is right here. I'm using yarn that I got at Pearl's Yarn Emporium in Asheville, North Carolina. Super cute store, great yarn, highly recommend. This is one of their in-house yarns from the Adventure collection, so it's a Pearl's Adventure yarn. The colorway is called Second Breakfast. I got it mostly because that name speaks to me. And, you know, I'd been sitting on this yarn for a while thinking about what project I wanted to make for myself with it and going back and forth. And then my boyfriend was like, you know, maybe we kind of came to the decision together that I, you know, would like to knit his mother a pair of socks. And, you know, I had some yarns. I don't know if he remembered this one, but I thought of this one in particular immediately. And, you know, I think that she would like that it was from a local yarn store in North Carolina. I thought that, you know, I think she would find the color name amusing. And I do think that she would generally like these colors. So, you know, I showed my boyfriend a few yarns that I have, and he was like, yeah, I think that one looks good. And, you know, there was like a small selfish part of me at first that was like, oh, but I want to use this yarn for me because I bought it and it's special. But like at the same time, like, I have a lot of yarn. I have a lot of yarn that's special to me. Most of my yarn is special to me in some way, you know? And I think that, like, I just think it'll make a better gift and be better used on her than on me. So I'm happy to use this yarn. And as I've mentioned in some previous videos, I just want yarn out of my stash right now. And I want, like, if I can get a finished object out of my, like, apartment also, that's like all the better, you know, like both the yarn and the finished object are gone. Perfect. We talked about it, and I told my boyfriend, like, I don't really want this to be a secret because I don't want to knit things for people who aren't gonna wear them or use them. Like, I'd rather someone be brutally honest with me and be like, no, I don't want that. I'd rather somebody tell me their actual measurements so that I can make sure that I make something that fits the person and or dog. I made a dog sweater once that fit really well, and I'm super proud of that one. I was like, I just want her to like measure her foot, please. Ask her to measure her foot. So she did. And my boyfriend comes from a tall family of people with big feet. And I say that with love. I come from a small family of people with mostly small feet. I'm 5'4". I wear like a US like women's 6.5 or 7 shoe. Like I think usually when I make socks for myself, they're like 8 to 9 inches long. You know, Will's mom is like 6-ish feet tall. So like, you know, I knew that this would be like a bigger sock than the sock that I make or the socks I make for myself. She measured her foot and she said it was 12 inches long, which sounded really long to me, but I was like, sure, okay. But as I just kept knitting, so first of all, this like the ankle part of this sock feels really tall, and I knit this to pattern, and I know it'll stretch. I think, you know, because it's a 3x1 rib sock, that kind of like exacerbates how skinny it looks, or how tall it looks, just because it's so skinny. But I might end up going back and making this like 2 or 3 inches shorter, like, I don't know, to maybe here. I'm really happy with how the yarn's striped in this upper portion. A little less so with how it worked up on some of the foot. I did end up frogging the instep decreases and alternating the yarn. So, I mean, I don't know. It turned out fine. I think especially like what's most important really is the top, because that's what people are seeing when you have your foot in a shoe. But as I was aiming to make this like 11 inches long with a 12-inch foot, and I just kept going and going and going, and it looked big. But again, I have small feet. The socks I make for myself are little. But I started to like worry a little. You know, I was like, 12 inches seems really big. And I don't know. And she told me she wore a size 12 shoe. And when I was Googling, I found that like women's size 12 shoes were like, well, I guess what I'm not certain about is when I'm looking at these things, if it's like the measurement of the foot or the measurement of the shoe. But either way, the measurements were like just under 10 inches or just under 11 inches. So like, you know, between 10.6 and 10.9 inches, which gave me pause. And I'd shown this to my boyfriend a few times and been like, does this look big to you? And he was kind of like, no, it's fine. She'll love it. I don't think he got a good look at the sock, in his defense. But when I finished the sock and cast off, this is like 11.5 inches. And I show it to my boyfriend and he's like, it looks good. And I'm like, does it look big? And he was like, maybe a little. And the more he looked at it, the more he was like, oh, wait, that's enormous. He measured his own foot. He wears a men's 13 US. His foot is not 12 inches long. We asked his mom to measure her foot again, and she said that it was a little under 11 inches. Obviously, I'm gonna finish this. I really don't mind. Like, you know, my boyfriend was so apologetic about me having to frog it. I don't care. I don't mind frogging it. I really don't. Mostly I'm happy I don't have to knit another sock this big. I'll probably aim for like 10.25, 10.5 inches, because from what I've read, you want like a 1/2 inch or so of ease in a sock in terms of length. That's probably what I'm aiming for. It seems like that's only like 1 inch, which, I mean, I guess part of why, like, you know, if it's tapering earlier, it'll look smaller. But yeah, so this sock is one of the finish and frog sock. I'll call this a finish and frog and finish, because I plan on making a sock that looks substantially similar to this. Okay, I guess for fun, we can look at this sock I knit myself and this sock that I knit for my boyfriend's mom. Oh, I guess the length of these is similar. That makes me feel better. This is a sock knitted using the Trusty Toe Up Sock pattern by Tanis Lavallee. The yarn is Knit Picks Felici and Knit Picks Stroll for the toes and cuff and heel. This was my second pair of socks that I was working on in England. I wound 2 balls of Felici out of 2, so I had 4 balls of Felici total. I did a similar thing for my trip to Alabama this past Christmas. And I'll link that video. But basically I matched up and wound two essentially identical balls of Felici in a colorway so that I could make two identical socks with minimal fuss. And I knit them toe up with an afterthought heel, or I mean, I guess it was a forethought heel because I put in scrap yarn, so that I could kind of knit until I ran out of yarn and then add the cuff. And I could mark where the heel would be. Now I think what I end up doing, and I have talked about this in a recent video talking about these socks, is like one repeat of the colorway, like one stripe repeat of all the colors of the stripes comes out to be like the length of my foot when including the toe and the heel in a contrasting color. So I finished the sock either in the UK or shortly after getting back, and I have cast on the second one. Now, I'm not totally certain where that is, which isn't great. I'll probably find it one day. But I honestly, and I don't think I even finished the toe increases of the other one. So I think there's a few issues there. One, that I don't quite remember exactly how I did this because of course I didn't write it down. The other one being that I think that this might be too like wide for me. So I've recently started doing 56 stitch socks, and I found that those tend to fit my feet better, especially accounting for the growth of a superwash sock as you wear it. So I might not really need to frog the second one because I'm just doing the toes still. But I think I'll probably frog these socks and then finish them. And again, like, I guess this isn't, unlike the other pair of socks, these aren't like a super high priority. I do really enjoy having the self-striping socks. I think it's like a fun thing to do and to have, and it's very easy. I might save it for a future trip. Once I frog it again, I might use a different contrast color because I don't know about that. Anyway, this I think I might actually end up frogging because I never finished the second sock, and I'm not certain that the fit of this sock is actually going to be what I want for myself. I found that I really like having a ribbed sock, so I might go for that when I reknit this. But this, I think I will end up frogging. My last sock, I knit on camera for like an hour. And this is the midwinter, one of the midwinter socks. I think maybe version 2 or 3. I'll make sure to link it. By Summer Lee Knits. I'm making it in Cloudborn merino twist sock, I think. This is the colorway Petal, I believe. And this was a Malabrigo dyed yarn for them. I think the colorway was Proporas. I knit a whole sock of this. I'll post a picture of it. I'm not, again, this is the theme. I'm not totally certain where it is. But I knit one. I enjoyed it. It wasn't even like I didn't enjoy knitting the sock. But I just ended up putting it down and not picking it back up. I made a video where I knit it for an hour and I did this much, I believe, of the sock. And then I've done like 2 rows since. And I really need to revisit this because I think the first sock turned out really well. It is maybe tighter, like or bigger. I might have used more stitches. I forget the exact stitch count of this, and I'm not going to count it right now, but it might be a little bit bigger than I would have picked. But I think with the color work, or I would pick now, at least, but I think with the color work, it doesn't have as much stretch. So I think it would be fine. I think these colors look really nice together. I really love the pattern. At a very basic level, I would love this 9-inch circular for other things. I knit this whole enormous sock on DPNs, which is not my preferred method of sock knitting because all of the other sock needles I have, the magic loop, the other 9-inch circular, I think I have one other one, like all of those are in other sock projects that I'm mostly not going to talk about today. But basically, like, I have let this sit for too long. It's time for me to get back to it. And maybe I will make another video to hold myself accountable, because it's a little embarrassing to be like, yeah, I made this whole video about how I needed to finish the sock, and then you made like almost no progress. But that's how it goes sometimes. It's fine. But I would like to be able to wear these socks someday, if I ever find the other one. So I think that this is definitely a finish. Let's see, I have 2 other projects. Just kidding, I have 3 other projects. So these ones are not socks. So this is a baby onesie. This is the Irwas by Nadia Cretin-Lechen. I'm sorry to the French speakers. It's a little baby onesie. It's not the pattern's fault. It really isn't. Like, this is a me problem. I just did not enjoy it. And, you know, I think on some level it's just like, it was very fiddly and small, and like the legs and just like very much a me problem. The pattern is written fine. Like, it's just, I think, like, I talked about this in my last podcast. I don't think I want to be knitting like fingering weight baby stuff, especially with things with so many limbs. Or, I mean, this is sport. So this was knit with Bella Cash worsted. This is the yarn in pistachio. It's in this yarn. It's in the colorway Storm. So this was something I was planning on making and gifting to my brother's boyfriend for their baby at Christmas. I think this was supposed to be the 6-month size, or 6 to 12, or 3 to 6, or something. Obviously I didn't finish it in time for Christmas because it's early February now. And I'm not even certain this would fit the baby anymore. I recently knit a flax for my coworker's baby out of this yarn, or former classmate's baby out of this yarn, and I held it double. And I just think that that's like, the reality is that I prefer larger gauge baby projects. I think having baby projects that like grow quickly keeps me motivated for baby things. Like, the motivation comes from the fact that it's quick, that I will be able to knit it speedily. And I watch it grow very quickly. And I just didn't find that to be the case with this. And I think that there were just too many like moving parts that I was not particularly interested in doing. And I mean, maybe at the time too, there was some other stuff that I knit for started knitting for myself that just kind of took over. So nothing against this pattern. It's just kind of learning about, this was, you know, a casualty of me learning about myself and the things that I like to knit, especially for gifts. I'm happy to knit for other people. I just need like a particular kind of project, and this was not really it. I don't even know if this would fit the intended baby anymore, and I will happily make that baby and or other babies things with this yarn that are not this onesie. This one is a frog. So this was a sweater pattern that I was writing about a year ago. It uses the Knit Picks Kindred yarn, which is alpaca and cotton. It has this fun like heathered, marled look to it. I forget what the colorway I used was called, but it's this nice blue. It's very pretty. And I decided, I was like feeling inspired to make this sweater. So I wrote and graded a pattern. Well, I didn't write the pattern, but I like, you know, graded it out and figured out all the stitch counts, and I knit it and frogged it and re-knit it like 3 times up to this point. I don't think I ever got sleeves on it. The first time it had really big armholes that were too big, and there was just like a lot of fabric in the armpit. The second time, these might be the same time. I forget if it was 2 or 3, but one time I had dropped a stitch, or no, I'd picked up a stitch along the body, so I had a bad stitch count, and I tried to just drop that stitch back to where I had picked it up, but then there was like a weird holy part. I wasn't able, like, I just didn't think it would block out. I decided to frog it, and then this time a few things stopped me in this attempt. So obviously, again, I finished the body here. So you can kind of see it here, I think. I dropped a stitch or knit 2 together at some point, and I ended up trying to pick up the stitch. So there's this like tight area where I added a stitch that gets bigger like here. So I think in this part, maybe I hadn't done a yarn over for the raglan increase, but either way, there's this part here that is tight. It's possible that would block out, or that I could kind of like move the yarn around if I tried. The other thing is that this yarn is discontinued. I might have bought this yarn on sale, which might have been my bad. You know, I think it was kind of a lesson for me in like realizing that if I want to design patterns, which obviously I've been dabbling in, I have a few projects that I've talked about on my podcast that have kind of been pattern ideas I've been floating and thinking about, and this was probably my first one, but I think it was kind of a realization for me that, like, you know, you buy your yarn on sale because you want to get good deals on yarn, but if you buy your yarn on sale and you're trying to design a pattern that you'd like other people to make with that yarn, maybe it'll be discontinued and you have to deal with that. At first I was like, maybe I'll just make a sample in this and then a sample in another yarn, but then when I like frogged it and re-knit the body like 2 or 3 times or whatever it was, and it just wasn't like coming together, and the yarn was discontinued, and you know, it's kind of a unique yarn blend, like the cotton and alpaca. It's a DK weight, I believe. I think my gauge is like 20 to 22, somewhere in there, stitches per inch. I think I just was like, you know, I still like the idea for this pattern. Like, I like the idea of this motif going down the front of something with some like little faux baby cables on the sides. But I think I decided like I needed to retool this idea. I'm happy with the general look, but I think that all those things compounded and made me think like, this isn't exactly what I want to be working on. Like, you know, I think the frustration made me set it down a few times, and then I kind of lost the momentum. And this is like a design idea I'd like to revisit. Like I said, I probably would do it with a different yarn. Well, no, I definitely would do it with a different yarn. I might do it with a different yarn weight and like consider some other construction elements. You know, and like ultimately I think it fit me pretty well. The body, I think I did pretty well on like the shorter shaping on my neck. Like I am like generally pretty proud of like how this turned out, but, and I think it was like a sign like, oh, you know, as I was knitting it and it would come out looking generally like a sweater of the correct proportions, it was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you can knit a sweater. Like, you could design something that like looks and fits like a sweater generally should. But this one I'm gonna frog. It's probably time for me to let go of this version of this design. Well, something's messed up in the shoulder, but I think I can allow that given what I'm about to say. This is a frog. Here's the thing about this. This is my Singularity by Swanky Emu Knits. This is the back panel, I think. I only got through the ribbing on the front panel. Actually, I might not have even finished the ribbing. No, I didn't finish the ribbing on the front panel. So this is a really fun pattern. The pattern is not the problem. I knit this using worsted weight yarn, and the yarns are, this dark blue is Earl Grey Fiber Company Chai Worsted Base, which is available only at Black Squirrel Berkeley, and the colorway Hydrangea. The light blue is Cosmo by Malabrigo on the Rasta base. The like white natural color is Rowan Pure Wool Superwash, and the gray is Dream and Color Classy. And I don't recall those color names. So, I thought a lot about like what colors I wanted to go into this, as I was like, I identified this pattern pretty early as one that I liked. I think I applied to test it and didn't get it, which is fine. But I was like excited to eventually make it. And I just don't think that I like the colors together the way that I thought I would. I think I struggle sometimes to put colors together, and I probably should have like swatched them together before I knit a whole body. I mean, I don't hate it. I just think it is very high contrast only with the blue, like only the Earl Grey like hydrangea color, the dark blue, is high contrast and everything else is pretty low contrast. And I did buy this, like I kind of worked my idea of what yarns to use around the hydrangea. I don't think that worked for me. I think the white, like the fact, like I don't mind high contrast color work. I just think the fact that it's like a 4-color thing and the only color that like is kind of high contrast with the others, or like very high contrast, is this dark blue, makes it feel a little out of place. I don't love it with the white, or I like it with the white. I think if I was making something that was only the blue and like the natural color, I would like that. If I was making anything that was like blue and the dark blue and one of these other colors, I would like it, but it just looks too busy and too like stark. I think my solution will be to replace the natural white color with a charcoal yarn I have in my stash. I think I have some Cloudborne Merino worsted twist in my stash, and I think that I will replace the white with that. And I might change the order of the stripe. Finish the front or the back. I like powered through the back. I got to the front. I knit part of this, and then I just like fully lost steam. But I think the fact that I was stalling on knitting the back panel is confirmation that maybe I just need to rethink this a little, frog this, and revisit it with a slightly altered color combination. So those are the 6 projects I pulled from Deep Hibernation. I'd love to hear if you keep sort of these whips in your stash that end up floating off there in the bottom of some drawer or bin or whatever, that you find yourself sort of not returning to. And if you also kind of have that aversion to just frogging right then and there, because I feel like that's part of, what ends up happening. Or I'll think about something, put it aside to see if I want to frog it, decide I do want to frog it, but not go right to the frogging and kind of just let it languish. How many whips do you have that are like active at a time? I tend to have, between 2 and 4, with a lot of inactive whips, as I just showed. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd love it if you would like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. I release videos every Friday or every other Friday. It's a little up in the air at the moment on what I've been working on knitting wise, some tutorials I have coming up, different plans I have, how my stash down's going, just a variety of things, mostly knitting related. I hope you have had a great day, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Bye.